What I want to look at is the persona and the journey in a little bit more detail by giving us an example of what does this actually look like. And in this case, we're going to use a role-based persona, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But first, really the idea of how do we go and create a persona? What are the elements of a persona? And first, those come from things like surveys, industry research, existing personas, workshops, visits, interviews. If you're in a case competition, likely come mostly from existing personas in industry research. You may have the ability to do some surveys. You won't likely have abilities to do things like workshops, visits, and interviews. What you're trying to identify, though, is the key elements of the demographic information. What are the goals and social styles? What are the motivations? What are the pain points? What's the values-based messaging? What's the channels that this persona uses? And through that, you're going to develop that and throw it into one of these 3 or 4 types of personas that exist. So there's goal-driven, emotion-driven, fictional, and role-based. And when you look at this, you're going to choose and build the persona or the personas based on the questions that need to be answered. So if they're more goal-driven, you create goal-driven. If they're more role-based types of questions, you create role-based personas. And with goal-driven, those questions look like, what do stakeholders want to accomplish with new technologies or process is a potential question there, but they're driven around goals of the organization, mostly in terms of what are we looking for? What types of goals are we looking at? Emotion driven will be more like questions like, how do the emotions, experiences, psyches of the stakeholders impact things like potentially the perception of change? Fictional would be what could be the roles, goals, and expected behaviors of stakeholders. This is quite often the one in a lot of case-solving competitions that you're going to look at. And I think the one that most people's teams do. But we need to also remember, these other types exist, and they may be the type of persona that you actually need in order to fulfill and tell the story of your solution. And role-based is, how do new ways of working impact the roles, responsibilities of the stakeholders? So questions similar to that, we need to answer those types of questions. So we start to look at, we need to build some role-based. And we're going to use a role-based persona here with Carla, seasoned consultant. In this case, we've got a quote. That quote can possibly be something that someone said in the case, and pull that out. Got a little bit of information about what the persona looks like, what the working environment may be. And then we start to work through the motivations, the goals, the pain points, the value-based messaging, and the channels. And so with motivations, it really, in this case, is where Carla finds purpose and value. And we talk about those things. With goals, is what's Carla's aspirations. The pain points are the things that get in Carla's way. And in each category, we start to talk about those. And we start to look at, how do we get the messages out to her, and potentially what might those messages look like. And that will turn into some of potentially your marketing and those types of pieces. We also can turn that into a journey. So this is Carla's hiring journey. She's a loyal employee looking for change. And we look at the journey. The journey is a posting. There's some sort of engagement. There's an enabling process that allows her to apply. There's a bit of a reward that comes from that enabling process. The meeting point is the thing like the interview. And what does that result in? In this case, we're trying to build rapport. So with the posting, she sees the posting, is interested. The engagement, she clicks on the job to apply using this new application process. She feels enabled because she can use that process to apply. She's rewarded because she feels rewarded and gets recognized for using that process in some form. The meeting point is Carla's offered an interview, and the rapport piece at the end is Carla's more engaged or more inclined to engage in trust management based on her experience. So really, the journey outlines the experience of the persona, and it identifies the pain point, predicts what's needed in order to support that desired outcome. And so those are the pieces that you need to make sure that you put back and keep in your solution as you develop your solution.